Councillor Hoban, Councillor McKay, Councillor Bogdan, Councillor Christensen, as well as the Mayor, Michelle Kafusi. We'll have an opening prayer presented by Councillor Garrett, and then the Pledge of Allegiance provided by Catrice McKay. Oh, Rachel Whipple, she's here.
Our kind Father in heaven, we're grateful for the opportunity to gather this evening to discuss matters important to our city. We thank thee for the freedoms we enjoy, for the process of deliberating and finding ways that we can, looking for ways we can improve our community. We thank thee for our leaders and pray for guidance and direction on their behalf, and also for thy help in our deliberations this evening. We pray for our public servants, others who are protecting us, and that they too can be guided and kept safe in their work. These blessings we ask in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As indicated on the screen, a required public hearing will be held for certain agenda items prior to council action. After each such item has been presented, time to comment will be provided for all those who wish to speak. For items that do not require a public hearing, public comment will still be taken following presentation of the item, but will be limited to 10 minutes. At this time, up to 15 minutes has been set aside for an open public comment period, which is intended to allow comment on matters that do not appear on the agenda, but are limited to topics regarding municipal business or within municipal council purview. Persons who speak during this time to an item that is on the agenda will not normally be afforded a second opportunity to speak during the comment period specific to that item. During any public comment period, each speaker will generally be limited to 2 minutes. Due to noticing requirements, no formal action will be taken in this meeting on matters that do not appear on the agenda. Those with comments are invited to approach the podium. Those participating on Zoom will need to use the raise hand feature to indicate they wish to comment. The chair may choose to alternate between in-person and online commenters. Please begin your comments by stating your name and your city of residence. You'll have 2 minutes to speak. At this time, is there any open public comment? Feel free to come up. We just need your city that you live in and your name, please.
So my name is Sharon Hassan and I live in Provo. So, and I apologize if this is out of turn. I don't know how this all works. So I just have kind of a quick issue I'd like to bring up to the city. So we live in a residentially zoned neighborhood. And it's my understanding that you have to, in order to have occupants live in your house that, you know, aren't family members or whatnot, you have to apply for the permit. And because of the zoning, you also have to then, upon applying for the permit, get permission from 60% of your neighborhoods, get approval from that to have like students rent out your home, etc. So approximately 2 months ago, we made a complaint, and Travis Hoban was so gracious to help my husband and I kind of like steer through how to make the complaint initially, because we have individuals within our neighborhood that are renting out their home. But they're renting out multiple rooms to students, and then our next door neighbors are actually renting the full basement to 5 individuals, and then they're also renting the upstairs to different students. So we can barely ever park in front of our house. There's garbage all over. People aren't taking care of the lawn. It seems to be kind of an issue. So we reported it to the city. It took the city over 2 months to actually do anything on it. And so now they've been referred, it's my understanding, to criminal court. The issue I'm having is we have 2 other residents that are doing the exact same thing. One that's across the street and one that's 4 doors down. So our entire neighborhood is turning into student or rental housing, which the whole reason when we bought in this neighborhood 6 years ago, we looked for zoning in Provo because we understand, you know, there's a large student population and we didn't want to live within revolving doors of people coming in and out, because to me, it brings down the property values of the neighborhoods. Most of the time when there's a lot of renters, no one's caring for the lawns, different stuff, and it actually deters the neighborhood. Is my 2 minutes up?
Okay, yes. So thank you for coming to talk to us. Can you please give your information to Malia, who's behind you, and we will follow up with you. Thank you. All right, any more public comment? All right, we're going to go to our first item on the agenda. An implied motion on an ordinance amending the zone map classification of real property located at 210 South, 500 West from residential conservation zone to general commercial. And this is presented by Mary Barnes in Developmental Services.
Thank you so much. All right. Kind of explained this a little bit earlier during the work session, but I'll quickly go through it again. Do I have a clicker as well? Okay, you got it. Sounds good. All right. Quick context. Oh, can you go back? Sorry. Yeah, that's perfect. All right. Just really quick context. Like Councilmember McKay said, this property is just down the road. The applicant requested this rezone from residential conservation to general commercial, specifically so that he could apply for a conditional use permit on a short-term rental to be within that home. It's short-term rentals are not permitted in the residential conservation zone at this time. There's no way for them to be permitted right now. That is the reason for this rezone. And this is also the result of a few code enforcement proceedings that are still ongoing with the applicant in connection with the short-term rental. Let's see. Just really quickly, the property does have existing commercial to the south, and then on all other sides, it is surrounded by different residential uses, whether it be single-family homes or like a fourplex, that kind of thing. Continuing on, these are the future land use maps, general plan and the Franklin plan. I outlined the property where that is in red. As you can see on all four corners of that intersection, or as you did see, okay, perfect. They are all residential on both maps. It was important to the technical advisory committees for the general plan and the Franklin plan to keep all four corners residential. And then just quickly, that commercial area is designated as mixed use below to eventually redevelop one day into mixed use. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, so these are some of the reasons for the proposed amendment from the applicant. I won't go through all of them. I'll just pick out a few of them. One was a short-term rental helps to pay for the upkeep of the historical home. And to that, we would say that it's not the city's priority to help people pay for their homes that they own. Also, there is a way to apply for grants for historical homes, and we specifically have that program called the Landmarks Register. It's a great program to help people with the admittedly higher maintenance fees for historical home. One other reason was this has been an Airbnb for the past 11 years with no complaints from the neighborhood. It has been those past 11 years, it's never been a legal Airbnb, and we realize that the applicant has stated that he wasn't aware of that. But while there were no complaints for the past 11 years, it still is a fact that the reason why we are aware of this Airbnb is due to a complaint, and we have received complaints since then, most recently at the recent Planning Commission meeting. And I can go through some more if needed, but for now, do you want to just skip to the next slide? Michael, could you go to the next slide? Sorry. Okay, so no, all good. All right, some reasons for denial. Staff is recommending denial on this item. One reason is that there's no public purpose for this amendment. It will only benefit the property owner. And also, for example, another reason is that the CG zone would allow uses that are not compatible with the single family neighborhood to the west. Once, as most people are aware, once a zone changes, that doesn't guarantee a certain type of use. It only allows, a predetermined list of uses, and those uses could be anything from short-term rental for sure, conditionally, or it could be like an automobile repair store. Oh, perfect, thank you. Some future owner could change the use of this home. It doesn't quite lock in. Changing the zone doesn't lock in the type of use. All right, let's go to the next one. That's code enforcement history, just a quick timeline, and then the permitted uses and conditional uses in the general commercial zone. You can see under the conditional uses, there's a short-term rental use. There's also wedding reception centers and dance halls. Again, us as city staff and you as city council, we need to think of the future and what is the future going to look here? How can we protect the neighborhood moving forward? At Planning Commission on June 26th, the Planning Commission did recommend denial. They decided that while this could be a good location for an owner-occupied ADU, currently we don't have anything in our code that allows for owner-occupied short-term rentals, and it would reduce the housing supply, possibly set a precedence, and commercial uses are not compatible with the residential street 200 South. So yeah, we are recommending denial on this item. It doesn't help to meet any goals of the general plan. It opens up this property to other commercial uses, which could encroach into the neighborhood, and it could send a message to other homeowners on busy streets like 500 West that the city will support rezones for short-term rentals, which is historically something that we have really tried to avoid. Any questions for me?
Any questions for Mary? Okay, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to open up this item for public comment. Anyone who would like to give public comment, you have 2 minutes.
I think the applicant had a presentation that he also wanted to
Okay,
give,
great.
if that's possible.
Good afternoon. This mic, this mic.
Yeah.
Thank
We're
you.
having technical problems today.
That's okay. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your time. This is a very important issue for me. I'm the homeowner, so I wanted to just start off by reading a letter from a local resident that I received as I was speaking with local residents about this issue. The resident said, "To whom it may concern, I'm in support and recommend having Justin's bed and breakfast stay in business. Since Justin bought the home about 14 years ago, he has had many valuable upgrades to the interior and the exterior of this historic property. It is one of the oldest homes in Provo, and it is a unique asset to this community. It makes me wonder why anyone would object to this being in operation when it is located in a commercial area and faces a busy roadway just south of downtown. I personally have been able to speak with many of the guests, some of who are repeat customers, who have come from near and far to visit Provo. Without exception, each person I spoke with has been impressed by the beauty and the detail that has gone into preserving this property. Justin not only receives registered guests from out of town, but he has been very generous in allowing local families to gather at this location and use the facilities. It would be a shame not to be able to continue to share this historical treasure with anyone that wishes to experience it while enjoying the other great attractions that Provo has to offer." And I've received several letters of support and comments from local residents, and I'll share those later in the presentation. So basically, I'm here to ask for permission to do something that I had been doing for about 10, 11 years, but was unaware that it was not actually allowed. Frankly, I have not had any problems from neighbors while I've been running this bed and breakfast. The first complaint that we ever received in those 10 years was in September, and it actually was more of a question about whether it was allowed in the zone as opposed to a complaint regarding an actual problem. There was an issue brought up in Planning Commission about an inconvenience by one neighbor who had a car parked in front of their house by one of my guests. But for 10 years, I have been managing and running the place. And in fact, kind of the opposite of complaints. My bed and breakfast has supplied jobs for several people in the neighborhood. It's provided temporary places to stay for local residents and people that are out of town. And it is one of the oldest and largest adobe structures in the city. I do love sharing this old structure. It's a historic place. I wish that I could take you all on a tour of it. It's a beautiful, beautiful home. It's just 2 blocks south of us. This is the front entrance facing 500 West here. It was built in 1870. It is out of adobe. It's 150 plus years old. It was built prior to the City Center Temple. In fact, during the City Center Temple tour, they had many objects under glass cases, like doorknobs, things like that, to protect them. They're museum quality items. This house has those same items currently being in use. It is a living museum. I feel that this historic home is best shared with the community. Long-term tenants, frankly, do tend to destroy and deteriorate and abuse homes. And frankly, I have rented the house out long-term in the past, and I have found that to be true. It's been difficult to keep it up in a good condition with long-term people living there. So due to its historic and sensitive structure, I found that shorter-term tenants were best. Looking at these images, those floor planks, people that stay at this home have the opportunity to walk on floor planks that were handmade out of timber from the mountains by the pioneers 150 years ago. It is a living museum, and one that I take great pride in, and I am excited to share and love to share with the community. Let me just look at my notes here. It is a very special and unique aspect of Provo. This home is very distinct and very different. Again, I have taken so much work and effort in keeping the house up, restoring it to its historic feel and look. I wish I could even show you more of what the property is like, but we are limited in time. The place, this house, this structure has functioned as a refuge. To give you an idea of who has stayed there, it functions as a refuge for those with low income and those that are in between housing. So it's not simply a place for for out-of-towners to stay. I currently have 2 long-term, because it's greater than 30 days, tenants who live there. They have been there from time to time over the past 10 years. They're the type of, they run into problems from time to time financially. And so they are the type of individual that sometimes I put up for a few days in the past, now for 30 days or more. But it's a place that local people can also come and stay at. So I have a mixture of local residents and out-of-towners. People like them want a place just like anyone does that is beautiful, kept up well, that helps them build self-respect because they live in a place that is upstanding. They pay $30 to $40 a night. You cannot find that anywhere else. I've had many local people stay here that are in that difficult situation. I've had mothers and fathers in marital problems that need a reasonably priced place to stay temporarily because they don't want to be a burden of family or friends. I've also had people that are from out of town. Plenty of them are from out of town. Guests who come to the convention center to visit their children or grandchildren at BYU and UVU, drop them off at the MTC. I get lots of folks like that as well. I've had families that come and stay and enjoy a beautiful Christmas in a historic home and a unique experience. It does benefit. I feel that it does benefit the community, and continuing to do this, I should say. I would like to continue to do this, and I feel that it is a significant benefit to the community. In fact, even Provo City last year received $10,000 in short-term taxes. You add that up over 10 years, and the city has received probably close to $100,000 in short-term taxes from me doing this. The area today is very different than it was 100 years ago. 100 years ago, this thing had a waterway running in front of it on 500 West, spacious lots, quiet, no cars. Today, we have 20,000 cars a day passing in front of my house. It is the second busiest street in Provo, and that data comes from UDOT. It is a corridor to downtown. It is a 4-lane state highway. Yeah, that state highway turns at 300 South, right, as you know. So it is not what it used to be. My home is shown in the background there, subject property. And then to the south of me, we have commercial functioning properties. So again, this is just the data, 20,000 cars a day. To give you some context, on 300 South, just a block south of me, in that neighborhood, the number of cars are only 500. So it's a very different look and feel that I experience living there versus people that are even behind me. So there are commercial functions and commercial buildings all to the south of me. I am the lone property on this block, on this side, that is a residential structure. I do not believe that it's fair that the burden of being that delineator be my home. I believe that a street is a better delineator, and that 200 South is that better place to put that delineation. The neighbor to the south of me, Van Linford, he actually wrote a letter or wrote some comments of support. I'll show you that in a second. He wrote some comments of support, and it was brought up in the work meeting earlier whether the owner south of me would, because there's one small parcel that is RC south of me, it's a locksmith, and whether that owner would support converting that to commercial so that that entire stretch is commercial, and he is supportive of that. So anyway, this is just some exhibits. You're familiar with the area. It's just south of us. This is what the street is like in the surrounding neighborhood. So what are the benefits of allowing me, giving me permission to do what I would like to do? I will serve as a buffer between true residential behind me and 500 West. Did we get that picture of that Heinz in? Nope. Oh, there it is. The Heinz Bed and Breakfast Mansion, just south of us here. This is what I want to do. This is what I had done more or less for 10 years, and I would like to do this. This building is historic. The costs to upkeep it are more than a traditional home. What has allowed me, so I'm a PhD student up at the U, and I'm teaching just over at UVU. So what has allowed me funds to maintain the home in such a beautiful state and repair it and advance it is the extra income from what I had done. So thank you very much, for your time. I am willing to be flexible, and there are, oh yeah, thanks. Thanks. So that first comment there from the neighbor to the south, I offer my full support to the property owner in rezoning and commercial. This is the owner of Arthur Lock and Key of the property, as well as some other residents who in the area have written.
She's an artist.
I am willing to be flexible, and shouldn't put it like that, but I want to work to try to come up with some way that we can do something with this beautiful structure and make it, share it with the community. It's a living museum. And one of the concerns is commercial allows Chick-fil-A or something like that. So putting the building on the historic registry would alleviate those concerns. And it's not currently on the historic registry, but I'd be happy to put it on that to alleviate those concerns. So thank you.
Okay, thanks, Justin. Are there any questions at this time for Justin or Mary?
I have a few questions.
Counselor Garrett.
Go first. I have a list.
Thank you, Justin, for your presentation. And I have driven by the property and commend you for its upkeep and landscaping. It's a beautiful part of that block. One part of the presentation by development said that in order to change the zoning to RC would require different parking than you have in place right now. I noticed behind the property, very limited parking, but the need to identify 7 parking stalls. How would you plan to address parking under an RC zone designation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. The aerial view of the property will show a pool in the backyard of the property. Pools are very expensive and time consuming, and I've been sweating this summer trying to get it to work. So there is an area of the property that, quite frankly, is begging for a new use. So that pool, I'd be more than willing to work out a solution by putting something in place of that pool. And if it means coming up with a beautiful, creative way of putting parking in behind there, happy to do that. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. And a second question would be, I did see in the minutes from the Planning Commission meeting and also from staff related to the sorry, my mind went blank. On the ADU designation, have you thought about owner occupying the home and then leasing out and continuing in a residential zone, RC zone, but basically seeking designation as an ADU.
I have looked into the ADU, and I guess what it doesn't really allow is, I mean, quite frankly, I am the owner and I'm single, so I don't have a large group to live there. So, for my situation, the best use of it is to share it with the community and to share that property. And is the best solution that I've been able to come up with.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Counselor Whipple.
So I've gone by this house for years, and I actually live on Third South where it is State Street. So just as busy, I think, as where you are. And the house that I live in at one point in time was a business, and they thought it would never be a single family home again. They had tried to put it on the historic registry as a way to boost it. And so it's interesting. My house went through very similar things. But we live there now, we're a family, and we also have a stone wall. So I'm like really excited about your home here. You mentioned that you've been running this as a bed and breakfast for, it looks like 9 years. When did you start doing this? Because you got it in 2015.
No, I bought the home in 2013.
13?
And so it was shortly thereafter that gradually started doing that.
Okay. Do you have a business license?
So during the time that we were doing that, no, we didn't know. We just thought, oh, starting out by renting a room at a time. Currently, to do the long-term rentals, we have, because I'm a grad student up in Salt Lake, I live in Salt Lake. My permanent residence is here, but I'm temporarily up in Salt Lake. And so they approved a temporary absence, which allows me to do the long-term rentals without the rental license.
But you said you're running it as a business, like a bed and breakfast business?
I had been up until the end of 2020.
Okay. And did you have a business license to do that?
So like a city license?
Yeah, operating a business within the city.
No, we had, we created an entity like statewide to do something, to do that.
Okay.
But no, wasn't aware of the local one.
Is your statewide business entity still current and in good standing?
It is, yes.
Okay. What's the name of that entity?
Alpine Homestead LLC.
Okay.
So and that's something that we've been trying to do to make sure that we are doing things in compliance. So that's a new entity that we created at the beginning of 2024. And so the previous one was, I think, run under a like a consulting company that I had.
Okay. So you just tucked it under there.
Yeah, frankly, was doing the best that I could to try to, I wasn't sure what all the rules were.
Yeah. So it sounds like you were just kind of trying to do best you could to make this house financially viable, to be able to repair it, but not necessarily knowing what any of the laws and regulations were that were applicable to your endeavor.
That's correct. Yeah, we didn't know. Initially bought it and just decided, well, I have all these rooms, so what will I do with them? And just started down that road and wasn't quite aware of all the rules and regulations, because had we known, because when I started digging into this, we realized that actually the short-term rental restriction has been in place since 2008, I believe, in Provo.
Yeah, well before you got this.
Exactly. Yeah.
So who is we? You've said we a couple of times.
Yep. So family, friends, workers. You can't do what I'm doing at the house by myself.
Do other people have an ownership interest in this house and business?
No.
Okay. And you mentioned getting on the historic registry. Have you started that process with the Landmarks Commission?
Looking into it.
But you haven't actually started a process. You're just starting to learn about it.
No, definitely learning about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I would love for you to do that. You do realize that such a designation would not stop you or a future owner from demolishing the house or changing it,
Really?
though, right?
You can demolish a house that's listed on the historic
Happened to
registry?
the Hotel Roberts here. It happens all the time.
That's interesting.
But if you are on the registry, then you do get a fund plaque and you can qualify for different state grants that can help you pay for like roofing and paint and upgrades to help preserve the historic character, because there is a state interest in preserving the buildings.
Yeah.
It's interesting, as you were speaking, it sounds as though your home is filling the need for a boarding house type of thing, right? And that's a housing type that we actually need, but is not allowed by any of the zones in our city.
Yeah, I agree. I think that would be something fantastic, right? Something, to fill that gap between how long.
Yeah, because we don't have those. And I'm somebody who's actually stayed in an Airbnb for a 6-week period while I was
Okay.
doing a study thing.
Awesome.
And so I can see the use of that.
Yeah.
I do have, I also appreciate that you're trying, now that you've learned that you've been operating a business without compliance, that you're trying to bring it into compliance. I am concerned, though, that if we do this change, there's no guarantee that we would keep your home or that you would stay there. Because as a commercial property, that lot has more value than it does as a residential property. And by making that change, we change the value, the economic calculation regarding that real property.
Yeah.
And we could be putting it at risk instead of protecting it.
I guess my assumption was that placing a building on the historic registry actually protects it. So that's interesting. I know that there are national registries, state,
Mhm.
and that's as much as I know, is that there's two distinct ones.
We really like the right of property owners to do what they can within their current zoning,
Yeah.
and registry be damned.
One of the interesting things is that the RC zone actually allows for a lot of commercial-like uses in historic buildings that are on the registry.
Well, that's only for those ones that were already
Grandfathered in.
established as commercial uses before the RC zone was imposed.
Okay, yeah, I was,
So the buildings that are next to you were already operating a commercial thing in 2002 when it became RC, and they're essentially grandfathered in.
yeah, actually what I mean is the listing of permitted uses, and maybe my terminology is not accurate, but it mentions historic buildings. So not necessarily that they were grandfathered in, but it
Mm.
specifically delineates historic buildings. So I don't believe the Arco Lock and Key is a historic building, but I see what you're saying, how its prior function was X, Y, and Z. But a historic building would be one that's on the registry that is permitted to do certain activities. Things like an antique store, a bike shop, a fuel store, a confectionery store.
Well, that may be an alternate path for you to pursue this.
Yeah. So it's very interesting as I've been learning about this and trying to figure out the best way to preserve the home. Because frankly, that's what I want to do is share the home and preserve it. And this seems the best route to go.
All right. Well, thank you for
You're welcome.
surviving my interrogation. I
Yeah,
appreciate
you're
your
welcome.
patience.
Thank you for the questions.
Any more questions for Justin or Mary? Okay, thanks, Justin. All right, we'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? Oh, you have to use the handheld.
Oh, I
Sorry.
see. Hi, everyone. My name's Brent Hutchison. I live at 666 West, 300 South. Also a historic home built in 1924. And I am a homeowner also trying to preserve, maintain, and keep this beautiful house. Unfortunately, I don't have an Airbnb to fund my projects. And so I don't feel like that's a super strong argument to change the zoning for this home being considered. I feel like the 2002 plan, the zoning plan, was put in place to provide a buffer and a kind of a hard stop to the encroachment of commercial properties, especially in the Franklin neighborhood, where I grew up. And so I think it is a beautiful home. I love driving past it and I would love to see it continue. I just don't think this is the correct route for the owner to go. I don't see it as guaranteeing the established current use of it or its preservation, especially if the owner moves away, gets a job at some other university as a PhD student myself. I know the academic market is very situational based on where schools are. So he could up and move anytime and the new owner could do what they will with the new business property. So I would recommend denying. Thank you.
Thank you. We just need your name and your city residence.
Hi, my name is Johnny Griffith. I live around the corner from Justin's beautiful property. Just right there in the Franklin neighborhood, across the street from the church, the elementary school, on 279 South, 600 West. And as a lover of local history, including the nerdy stuff, like 2002 RC zones and meeting minutes therein. And as a Franklin resident, interested in the Franklin plan and the overall need to preserve the character of some of these beautiful neighborhoods, I commend Justin's efforts to preserve the historical nature of his home. I am concerned at some of the blind spots that I've heard at the Planning Commission in this meeting in regards to the nature of historical designation, both at the national and the state and local level, in terms of that they are not a guarantee. In the same way that the RC zone is not a guarantee of the preservation of this historical home. So, in the face of the fact that this whole incident came about because of, well, round two of this came about in the face of our fire department going and investigating some violations and noting numbers on the doors, I would be really concerned if the council were to set the precedent of approving a zoning change in the face of pretty egregious, uneducated violations. I don't think we reward that type of behavior. I think we reroute and educate, and work together, avoid any sort of harsh regulatory measures, but just educate and work towards actually preserving this property in a reasonable manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right, we will move to council discussion. Any council discussion on this item? I have a couple things to say about it. I think the Franklin plan is very important. I think a lot of time was spent on that and foresight, and I really appreciate the RC zone and what it does. And I do believe that area will turn around. There are a lot of commercial properties, I believe, that will turn around down the road in that RC zone. Also, I believe a family would buy that house in a heartbeat to live in it, or any kind of group of, family, couple, individual. I think people would happily be so excited for a house like that to go on the market and buy it as their family home. I don't believe having it as an Airbnb is our only option. It is gorgeous. I love the way you've kept it. And I think you'd have no trouble selling that to someone who wanted to live in it full time as their primary residence. Any other comments on this one? Councilor Bogdan.
I would say I would agree. I fully respect the amount of effort and everything that went into the Franklin neighborhood plan. And Justin has done an amazing job upkeeping the home. And I don't see any reason why someone wouldn't purchase it and just live in it. And I think it would not service the Franklin neighborhood well to have an Airbnb, a legal Airbnb or bread and breakfast there on the corner.
All right, we will go to a vote. Counselor Bogdan.
So if I vote no, then that means a no to this, right?
Yes.
Okay, so no.
Counselor Christensen.
No.
Counselor Garrett.
Yes.
Counselor Handley.
No.
Counselor Hoban.
No.
Counselor McKay, no. Counselor Whipple.
No.
And that does not pass 6-1. Next, we have an applied motion on ordinance amending Provo City Code Chapter 14.15, residential manufactured home park zone. It'll be presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Good evening. So we talked about this in work session today, so I won't go too much into it. Basically, this amendment was drafted by our department, kind of under direction of the building division, who's seen some problems with some issues in our mobile home parks. So we're trying to clean that up by adjusting permitted accessory uses, specifically removing the allowance for a permanent garage to be permitted in these zones. And then the remaining amendments in front of you are mostly cleanups, whether that's a cleanup to grammar or changing a word, or being more consistent with today's codes and standards, whether that's a building code or other zoning code in Provo City. So that's all I have really for my presentation. I have all the pages up here if you want to ask specific questions on any specific amendment in the chapter, but that's all I have prepared.
Thanks, Aaron. Any questions for Aaron? All right, thanks, Aaron. We'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? All right, we'll open this item up for public discussion. Any discussion on this item? All right, we'll take a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Christensen is excused. Counselor Garrett,
Yes.
Counselor Handley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan.
Yes.
And that passes 6-0. Next, an applied motion on ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding parking requirements in the mixed-use zones. And this is a citywide application presented again by Aaron Ardmore.
So used to grabbing that mic. We talked about this, but let me just go over it again. So this mixed use zone was enacted not too long ago. The idea behind it was it'd be a kind of urban infill in our downtown neighborhoods. So we put in that automatic 25% discount on the parking standards, similar to our downtown zones. But we've seen this being applied in more rural or suburban areas. So we felt like it's appropriate to just have those be parked at the 100% of whatever the land use proposal is. So that's all I have for this.
Sorry, I have a crisis with my kids on my phone. We're gonna take a question by
Okay, yeah,
Mr.
just
Hanley.
a question, Aaron. So I understand the logic behind this. I guess I would like to hear a little bit more assurance from you that, I mean, the logic behind it is what I really like, because I think it makes a lot of sense to have that reduction in areas where it will be helpful. And I understand from reading the packet that the feeling is that those reductions are available in other areas of the code. I guess I'm just a little worried that we won't take advantage of those, and it'll, because it's no longer sort of automatic, that we might end up with some mixed use proposals where we are ending up requiring too much parking and raising the cost of the project significantly and building more parking than we need in situations. So I'd like to just have you help me understand why, if we make this change, we're not running that risk.
Sure. Yeah, happy to address that. As we've seen these, they've been on the west side. We have one approved and a couple more that have talked about using this on the west side in the suburban environments where the justification that you're talking about may not make sense. However, those could still apply for reduction in different ways. They can do a transportation demand management model through a civil engineer justifying that and through different incentives for people not to bring cars. Those have been approved by the Plan Commission. I think the Plan Commission has a good handle on when they're appropriate and when they're not. They've seen a number of them over the years now. There's that way of going through it. There's just a straight reduction being approved through a increase in bike parking in the code in 1437. So that's allowable. And then there's shared use allowances, daytime night use that are permitted through this code assets. So we feel pretty comfortable with those elements in the code. The developers usually go and try to get those if they're available to them. And we've seen that in our multifamily, specifically a lot around campus. Any time of multifamily requests, they're asking for parking reduction. So I think the public's aware of it, and they'll ask for it if they feel it's valid. And on top of that, I think the Plan Commission has a good understanding of what to approve those.
Okay. And this gives you the flexibility, of course, to say no to those requests if you feel like they're not going to help.
Right.
Yeah.
If the amenity
That's the
package
issue
doesn't really
for you.
reduce the number of cars coming to the site.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Any more questions for Aaron? All right, we will open this item up for public comment. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go to council discussion. Any discussion on this item? Councilor Bogdan.
Coming from the west side, I really appreciate this. Thank you, Aaron and staff, for coming up with this.
Any other discussion? All right, we'll go to a vote. A vote on the applied motion, Councilor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilor Handley,
Yes.
Councilor Hoban,
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes, Councilor Whipple,
Yes.
Councilor Bogdan,
Yes.
Councilor Christensen,
Yes.
and that's 7-0. All right, next applied motion on an ordinance amending on-premises short hold time electronic display sign standards, citywide application. This will be presented by Aaron Ardmore.
Okay. So I don't know if the applicant's here. Is anybody from the applicant group here? No. Okay. There was a few people last time at the Plan Commission, so I wasn't sure.
I would just like to see somebody just like decide they're going to come up and.
So I'll do my best at kind of explaining the reason behind the request from this group. So we have this property here on North University, mostly a medical office building, mostly like dental services, but there are some variety in there. They came to the city with a request to amend the code to allow for short hold times on their signage allowances. So currently they have just a standard monument sign there. You can see in the bottom right picture. They would be allowed today to convert that to electronic display, but they'd be restricted on how often that can change. So they are requesting this amendment to allow them to change that if they install the electronic sign to change every minute rather than every hour. So to advertise the number of businesses that are in the building. As the staff looked at this, we kind of analyzed the current areas that allow this short hold time. Those are in front of you in green. The request is in red, and felt that this was pretty consistent with the other areas that already allow it. In the road networks are collectors and arterials. There's commercial properties fronting these collectors and arterials. So we thought that made sense to add this section to it and letter K there. That's probably the best I could do at covering what Lisa would have said.
Thanks,
But
Aaron.
Again, if you have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
Okay, any questions for Aaron? All right, thanks, Aaron. We'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment on?
There is a comment
Oh,
from,
so sorry. Counselor Garrett?
Thank you. Chair Catrice. Yes, Aaron. I know we talked about this during our study session. Could you just clarify, when you designate a new area for, in this case, the short hold display, does it need to be the entire block, in this case, from Cougar Boulevard to University Parkway, or could it be just half the block?
No, they could have requested just half the block. I think that came out of a discussion back and forth with trying to create the text amendment from their end. They had been corresponding with staff asking, what would make the most sense, what would be the easiest to, for staff to comprehend, for the public to comprehend. It just, from one street to another is really easy.
Yeah.
But if the council felt it appropriate to cut it off at a certain north address, that's another option.
Okay. Because the RC zone designations would not qualify for
Right,
the.
so the
just-
RC automatically doesn't qualify, but as we covered today, the PF, the CG and the PO would.
Okay, thanks, Aaron.
Okay. Public comment about this one?
can you come up to the microphone, please?
You say your name and city of residence.
My name is Karen Payne, born in Provo, Utah. I'm here today. I was here to listen to zoning because I'm interested in moving back home here, where I was born. And I heard, I believe this young lady here, but I'm not sure, make a statement that it is, you're most interested in family, people purchasing. I'm 64. I'm not going to have any more children.
Oh, we don't,
Does,
sorry, this is just public comment for this one item.
oh,
We would welcome you, if you want to come back, you're welcome back. Everyone's welcome. There's
okay.
no, we
Who-
have
who
no
would I talk to
preferences.
about that?
About what, moving here?
About the restriction on a home
Oh.
being only sold in the eyes of, to a family. And when I'm
Do you know what?
64
There's-
years old, I'm not going to be bringing a family.
You can buy any home in the city that you want. You can just only do certain things with it, right? As far as commercial, making it an Airbnb or
Right.
something, right? So you can talk to Development Services. Look at the guy in the corner waving. You can go talk to him.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay. All right. Any public comment about the electronic signs? You know the drill, name and city.
There's a lot of talking. Johnny Griffith, Franklin, Provo. Yeah, just no, don't do this. I don't want, I mean, this is my kids go to this. I heard Councilwoman Whipple in the planning meeting earlier talking about the same thing. My kids go here. I know this building. I don't think we found it because we saw it on the street. I think we found it in other ways. And that was just on Google, that's pretty easy. So I don't want to encourage more flashing signs. I know they can do a sign, but to allow them to do a faster flashing sign, I don't want to do that. I know y'all talked about Blue Medical and the mall, and I drove by both of those places today. And yeah, let's not do that here, please. So that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, seeing no more public comment, we will move to council discussion. Any council discussion on this item? All right, Councillor Christensen, then Councillor Bogdan.
I share the concern about what we're doing with signage in our city. There's a reason I moved to Provo. It's because I didn't want to live in Las Vegas. Nothing wrong with Las Vegas. I just choose not to live there. I live up by Timpview, and I can see from my house, I can tell you whether the Wiki Wash in Orem whether the sign is red, blue, or white during the day. Now, I realize this isn't anywhere close to that. What they're asking for is the change rate. I actually think we're heading the wrong direction, so I won't support this.
I was just gonna say, after watching Planning Commission, I was like, oh, yeah. And then after I heard George and I heard Travis's comments today, I'm like, okay, no. So George, I just wanted to bring that up in a public meeting that you did sway me this time. And Travis, you too.
There's a first for everything. All right, Counselor Hoban.
Well, I wasn't trying to sway anybody, just inform. But I'm actually worried because right now they could put up an electronic sign there. It just would rotate every hour instead of every minute. Okay. In this case, they're going to move it to the south side, which I think is better. We have a little control over what happens as opposed to at this, if we say no, they say, okay, well, we're going to put a sign up anyways, and on our terms. In this case, we're getting an agreement from them to move it to the south side. And so I'm highly sensitive to all this because like I said, I was on the committee that explored, churn times and such, and like dedicated like 2.5 years of my life to it. But I think we get something better by approving it than potentially what might happen if we don't. So that's kind of my 2 cents there. I'm vacillating a little bit, but I'm leaning towards supporting it because of that. Makes sense.
Any more comments or discussion? Counselor Whipple.
Yeah, I think this is an appropriate area for this type of sign and for this type of churn rate. I don't see harm in adding it to this particular area because it is one of our most heavily commercial corridors right there. And it wouldn't affect the little RC zone that's kind of got its back to that anyway. So I see this as a prudent and practical change and not one that would cause additional harm. And we've done things like this before, and because we're very specific on where it is and we've made it clear our general distaste for electronic signs, especially by residential areas. I think that if another applicant in a different part of the city were to try to do this in an area that is much less appropriate, they would already know that they would be coming to us with a huge uphill battle. So I don't see that by approving this, we would be enabling the wholesale flashy sign rampage throughout our city. So I feel comfortable with this. I don't think these electronic signs are really that necessary. They're kind of ugly, but that's what people want to do, and it's useful for them and for their properties. And I think being able to let our property owners use their property in the way that is competitive and it's consistent with their business and with standard practices is a good thing. And I don't want to do things that would make it harder for our businesses because we want to support them in our community, especially good established ones like we have along this corridor.
Counselor Handley.
Well, I said this earlier, but I'll say it again for the sake of the public, but I just, and I'm sorry that the applicant's not here to maybe provide some evidence, but I don't, in today's day and age, I don't see evidence that signage of the kind that's being requested here would make that much of a difference in terms of the business profitability, given how people find locations and go to them entirely through the internet these days. So I just don't see the need for it. And I worry about the even just the few spaces there, that gets multiplied a few more times if we open this up. So I'm not going to support it for that reason.
All right, are we ready for a vote? Oh, Counselor Garrett.
I'm sensitive also to the fact that they are willing to install the sign on the south end of their property. I would be interested in seeing this designation only to the midpoint of that block so that it doesn't continue into the RC zone. But there are other properties that have similar signage, but I think it would highlight the fact that it's fine for a commercial zone if it stopped at the edge of that commercial property rather than extending through all the way to University Parkway.
Do you want to make a motion?
Sure, I'll make a motion then that the ordinance to amend the on-premises short hold time electronic display that's before us be approved, but that it extend only to the edge of the zone, the commercial zone there, not into the residential conservation zone.
Does that cover it, Brian?
Well, it does, other than that we have a rule in the handbook saying that we can't vote on amendments until they're actually in writing in front of us. So if the motion passes, then we need to either
Continue it?
we need to either continue or recess for a minute while we tweak the ordinance. And we probably need Aaron to tell us what the northern street boundary of the PO zone is in order to tweak it.
And I'm sure we're fine continuing it. Would that be better, Aaron?
Chair McKay, I wonder if it would be appropriate to do a vote so we could see if
Yes,
that
yeah,
effort were
we will do a
even
vote. So
necessary.
is there a second for Counselor Garrett's substitution?
I will second that. I also have one quick question on that, which may be for either Brian or Aaron. If we're going to the top of that PO zone and the PF zone on the other side extends beyond that, could the property owner with the PF zone put one of those signs in the portion of their property that's on the south half that's within the zone, but not the north half?
Yes, if that's how we define it. So I guess that's the question is, there's a couple ways to, slice this pie, right? The question is, do you want to improve it on only the west side of the street? Do you want to approve it on both sides of the street, but only to the extent that the property is PO and not PF? Or do you want to approve it to a designated northern limit, no matter what the adjacent zone is?
My understanding of his motion would be to go to that northern limit, and that's what I would support, even though it's only halfway through the PF property there.
Okay.
I just wanted to be clear that that's what I was supporting and
Right,
that
and
that's
that's
an
the way
okay
I
thing to
understood the
do.
motion too, is so that the northern limit would be the PO zone on the west side of the street. So that
Yeah.
straight
Yeah, so
line
just draw a straight line.
at that limit.
Okay, I think I understand that, and I am happy seconding it with that understanding.
Okay, we will take a vote on the substitute motion. Counselor Handley,
So if I intend to vote against the thing in the end, I guess, I don't know why I'm looking at you, Brian. I can't ask you for political advice. I can only ask you for legal advice.
If you think that amendment
Is better than
is
nothing.
better than nothing.
Okay,
then-
I'll vote yes then.
I'm with you on that.
That was a yes.
With your Catrice off.
okay. Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan,
No,
Counselor Christensen,
No.
Counselor Garrett,
Yes.
Okay, so that passes 4-3. And
So
sorry,
5-2, right?
5-2. Yep. Yep.
So then we'll, with chair's permission, so that we're not trying to tweak it right now, we'll bring it back in 2 weeks and I'll work with Aaron to get the language right to, as far as the
It will
northern boundary.
come back to us in a new motion.
Okay.
Okay.
What's that?
It still comes back to us for another vote.
Right.
All right, that's great. Thank you. All right, so that will come back again in another motion in a subsequent meeting. An applied motion on a resolution to place 1.18 acre parcel of ground located approximately 200 North Lakeview Parkway on the surplus property list and authorize the mayor to dispose of the property. This will be presented by Tara Riddle.
Thank you. This is kind of exciting to have a mic in my hand. Hope we're gonna have a mic drop moment at the very end. But so just to go through this, we did discuss this in study session a couple weeks ago. This property was acquired back in 2017 as part of a larger parcel that was purchased for the Lakeview Parkway. The parcel contains 1.18 acres. We did, as we typically do, a departmental review, asking all the departments if there's any future use for this property, which none were identified. We had the property appraised, which came in at $126,500. The adjoining property owner to the south, which is the Kirkland Family Investment LLC, has made an offer on the property at appraised value. And they want to include it in their overall project, which is part of the Birch Bend. They want to close on December 3rd of this year. We used MAG funding when we acquired this property, so any money that we make off this will go back to MAG to reimburse them. As part of our deal, Provo City will retain a 40-foot utility easement along the river frontage. Now, based on our discussion during study session, we've included a couple of other things. We are planning on putting a deed restriction on the property so that they cannot build on it. This also agrees with the regulation that we have that you can't build within 100 feet of the riverbank. So I think we're totally protected in that regard. We're also going to recommend that we have public access for any of the trails on the property, although those will be privately owned and maintained. So at this time, we just ask the council to consider the approval of this resolution and give the mayor authority to sell it to the adjoining property owner. Are there any questions?
Okay, thank you so much, Tara. Are there any particular questions for Tara? I actually have a question. So thank you for listening as far as the no development and all of that. I was a little confused. So we can't do a public easement at all on the side next to the river?
There is the 40-foot public
Excellent.
utility
Okay.
easement is there.
That is, so
Yeah.
there will be the normal public trail next to the river. You're just saying the rest of it is private property, which it is.
Right.
Great. Okay, that works for me. Any questions for Tara? Counselor Whipple.
There's not an existing trail on that side of the river, though.
No, I think that the people are planning on putting a trail system in. The 40-foot easement is for our utility purposes, so that we can maintain and anything that we need to do within the river.
So there's not a trail there yet, but if they build a trail as part of their development, then there will have to be public access to the trail
Yes.
that they have
Okay.
built.
Right.
Okay.
Does that answer your?
Yes,
Okay.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah.
Counselor Christensen. Oh, Counselor Bogdan.
So you said before that you were going to recommend that there would be public access to the trails. We can't make it hard and firm saying you have to allow public access to whatever trail you put in along the river.
Yes, we'll amend the sales contract to say that.
To say that they have to allow public access. Okay,
Yes.
thanks.
All right, I think you're good, Tara. We'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? Doesn't look like it. Any council discussion on this item?
Might as well hear it a third time, and it will be deed restricted.
Correct. That would be recorded on the deed at the county.
Beautiful, thank you.
Tara knows all about this stuff. Counselor Whipple.
I'm so thankful that you went through this and considered our questions. I think this is much better than it was before. When you're going through your process and determining that there's no future use for properties as you're bringing them to us, I would like, if if you or your staff could consider whether this is a property on which we could potentially do housing developments like we're doing on Geneva Road and 2000 North. I'd like for that to be one of the questions that we ask. Could this potentially be used for that kind of thing?
Land trust.
For a land trust. I don't know if that question is in the process yet, but I would love for it to be.
Okay, currently what we do is ask each of the departments if it has any use for their particular department, but that's definitely something we can consider as we're discussing.
Yeah, yeah, and maybe that's one in development services
We
or
know-
something where
yeah, we know
you start
Bill.
asking that. But if that can be part of your process, then it will last beyond all of us who are currently here now. Thank you.
All right, we'll take a vote on the implied motion. Counselor Hoban.
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple.
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan.
Yes.
Counselor Christensen.
Yes.
Counselor Garrett.
Yes.
And Counselor Handley.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. Next, an implied motion on a resolution to place 0.375 acre parcel of ground located at 1992 North Geneva Road on the surplus property list and authorize the mayor to dispose of the property. Again, Tara Riddle.
Okay. So this property is located on the corner of 2000 North and Geneva Road. It's property that we acquired back in 2015 with the desire to use it for the expansion of both of those roads and also to include a signalized light on the intersection on the southeast side. So that property's already been dedicated to UDOT. So the remaining parcel is what we'll be talking about tonight. Oh. There no other. Is that it? Oh, there we go. All right, so as you said, the property contains about 0.375 acres. Just like the other property, we did do a departmental review. And the property was originally acquired for $210,000. So as we discussed in the study session, what we're going to do with this property is the redevelopment agency is going to help to pay for this. We listened to you when you said that we'd like to contribute a little bit more to see if we can make this work as far as a housing project. So we went back and talked to Public Works and to the administration. We found that the property was originally acquired using road funding. So we do need to reimburse that fund. So what we'll do is take any of the property that we'll be using for the housing project and reimburse the road fund for that money. And that's going to be about $140,000. So the difference will be kind of what we're donating towards this particular project. So we'll be selling the property to the housing authority. The redevelopment agency will be using their affordable housing fund to reimburse Public Works. So the plan is that the housing authority will then develop this property into twin homes for low-income housing.
Great.
So are there any questions?
You're just killing it here, Tara. All right. Any questions for Tara?
No, thank you.
Okay, that's perfect. Thank you. Oh. Did you want a comment or do you have a question for her?
Just a comment.
Okay, comments after. So we're going to open this up to council discussion. Public comment. Anyone have public comment on this item? Oh, Councilor Whipple has a question.
It says low income housing, but is it low income housing or just affordable or workforce housing? Because those are different.
We're doing workforce housing.
It is workforce.
Okay, so this is not a low income housing project. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, seeing no public comment, we will go to council discussion. Councilor Bogdan.
That's actually what I wanted to clarify on the public comment, because we will have, I'm sure, people listening from over there, that this will be housing for Provo City employees, right?
It's
Yes.
going to be Provo City employees, teachers, police officer, firemen.
All right, thank you. And thanks for listening to our comments and coming up with a compromise.
Any more council discussion? All right, we'll vote on the implied motion. Councilor McKay, yes. Councilor Whipple?
Yes.
Councilor Bogdan?
Yes.
Councilor Christensen?
Yes.
Councilor Garrett?
Yes.
Counselor Handley,
Yes.
Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
and that passes 7-0. Thanks, Tara. Next, we have an applied motion on a resolution approving the appropriation of $383,000 in the Rental Housing Rehab Fund for an affordable senior housing project. This will be presented by Melissa McNally, our Community Grant Administrator.
Thank you. So I am here to ask for an appropriation of $383,000 in the main fund, what was Fund 272, the Rental Housing Fund, and this would be money that would go as a loan to finish up a senior housing rental project, an affordable senior housing rental project in Orem. Do you have any questions for me?
Thanks, Melissa. Yeah, we heard this in our work meeting last council meeting. Any questions for Melissa? All right, thanks, Melissa. We will open this item up for public comment. Is there anyone who'd like to make a public comment? Seeing no public comment, we'll go to council discussion. Any council discussion on this item? All right, go to a vote on the implied motion. Councilor Whipple,
Yes.
Councilor Bogdan,
Yes.
Councilor Christensen,
Yes.
Councilor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilor Handley,
Yes.
Councilor Hoban,
Yes.
and Councilor McKay, yes. That passes 7-0. Next, we have an applied motion on a discussion of a resolution appropriating $175,000 in the water fund for the purchase of property and funding service line improvements applying to the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2025. And this will be presented by Gordon Haight, our Director of Public Works.
Thank you. Do I have a slideshow? So the city, as a result of the new Temple project, sold off a portion of the road that was being abandoned for the full project. As part of that, the city received $175,000 that was not allocated in the budget. And so what we're looking to the council to do is to do a budget amendment that would allow us to, let's turn to the slide. This is the parcel that the city sold, or that we got with the abandonment of the road, and we're selling that. We already sold that piece to the Temple lot. So now we have $175,000 to the city. So $125,000 of it, we want to buy additional property around the tank sites that would give us greater opportunity over the next decade when we have to replace these tanks. It will give us the additional right-of-way for the construction. The second part of this funds is we are working with the Quail Valley HOA to turn over the water line to the city. They're putting hundreds of thousands of dollars of improvements. There's some additional improvements we want to do above to make sure that it fits into our system and the maintenance and so forth. And we're contributing about $50,000 to that project. So what we're asking today is to allocate those funds to the water department. We're going to buy property for the tanks and then make the additional improvements on the Quail Valley water system. Any questions?
Any questions for Gordon? All right, thanks, Gordon. And we'll open this item up for public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment. All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go to council discussion. Any council discussion on this item? All right, we'll go to a vote. Councilor Bogdan,
Yes.
Councilor Christensen,
Yes.
Councilor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilor Handley,
Yes.
Councilor Hoban is excused, Councilor McKay, yes, Councilor Whipple.
Yes.
So that passes 6-0. Next, an applied motion on ordinance amending Provo City Code regarding unattended vehicles and trailers. This will be presented by Michael Sanders, a policy analyst. And this is a cleanup from before. We passed something earlier, and now we just need to clean it up because there was some conflicting stuff.
Yes. Any more questions other than that?
Any questions for Michael on this one? Councilor Bogdan.
I just totally want to make sure that we are just saying that the trailers are going to park on a different block face every 72 hours, and then vehicles can be parked within, I don't know, what, so many yards every 72
400
hours.
feet.
400 feet. There we go. Not even a yard. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Any more questions for Michael? All right, we'll open this item up for public comment. Any public comment on this item? All right, seeing no public comment, we'll go to council discussion. Any council discussion on this item? All right, we'll go to a vote. A vote on the implied motion, Councillor Christensen.
Yes.
Councillor Garrett.
Yes.
Councillor Handley.
Yes.
Councillor Hoban is excused. Councillor McKay, yes. Councillor Whipple.
Yes.
And Councillor Bogdan.
Yes.
So that passes 6-0. Next, we have an implied motion on ordinance prohibiting parking in front of mailboxes in certain areas in proximity to Timpview High School. And this will be presented by David Pyle.
Evening, councilors. As you already know, this is as you already know, this is a proposed ordinance that would prohibit mailbox on-street parking within 10 feet on either side of a mailbox in certain areas around the Timpview High School. That, again, that 10-foot recommendation comes directly from USPS. That's their standard for creating a gap in which a vehicle can approach a mailbox, deliver, and then pull out without the driver leaving the vehicle. This is the area that would be affected by the ordinance. We have two boxes, the first from 3950 north to 3050 north, and then from 4450 east to Timpview Drive. The second would be a line beginning at 39th north and extending eastward until it reaches Quail Valley Drive, and then following Quail Valley Drive back down to Timpview Drive. Then it would also include two smaller streets to the south of the high school, 3230 north and 3100 north. 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Saturday would give the Postal Service plenty of time to complete their routes while hopefully minimizing the impact to residents living in these areas. And there is a sunset clause in this ordinance that would end at the start of the year on 2023. Construction on the high school is scheduled to end in 2029. So this ordinance would end at the end of that year. And if there are any questions from the council, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions for David? Councillor Handley.
Yeah, we received an email during the work session that had a question that I wanted to just get an answer to. This is regarding the north side of Quail Valley Drive. So if you want to go back to that map.
Wasn't that email about overall parking, not about mailbox parking?
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it is relevant because it sounds like the city, and I don't know who in the city made this promise to the school board that we would close parking on the north side of Quail Valley Drive and open it up on the south side of Quail Valley Drive. So, but anyway, do you know anything, does this affect that in any way? I mean, because it looks like the red line here indicates, at least as far as where it applies to the school, there are no mailboxes there, obviously, so it's irrelevant. But if the north side is closed anyway, all along that road, then that entire red line is kind of useless because there's no parking. At least that's what.
But it still delineates the area. So
yeah, I just wanted the email was just wanting to make sure that that was part of the deal, because it sounds like it's not if we're restricting parking in front of mailboxes on the north side of Quail Valley Drive, and at the same time we've promised no parking there. I can understand the citizens' confusion.
we can send that on to Sandy and follow up about the parking stuff. I don't think it's relevant to this.
Okay.
I was not aware of any such promises.
Okay. And we don't know, does the mayor know where that promise came from, or, okay. It sounds like it was the Timpview principal saying this to citizens, that this was a partnership with the city. So I don't know.
I know when they started construction, they called on our police department and our public works to all come together and have a meeting to discuss the traffic issues, which were bigger than we even expected. They had a great plan in place. And then the following year, they repeated and did the same thing and had another meeting. And I know Momi was really pleased with how things are going. She's really quick to let me know if they need more enforcement, if there's an issue over there, and we're quick to react. So I've only heard positive, but I can definitely follow up on this.
Thanks.
All right. Any questions for David on this one? All right, we'll go to public comment then. Any public comment on this? Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll go to council discussion. Any council discussion? Councilor Christensen.
I like the fact that we've identified the specific area that's going to be affected. These are my neighbors, and this is a big, big issue. And so I'm glad we're responding to them, glad we have the sunset built into it, and that people can get their mail.
Thanks, Craig. Anyone else? All right, we'll take a vote on the applied motion. Councilor Garrett,
Yes.
Councilor Handley,
Yes.
Councilor Hoban,
Yes.
Councilor McKay, yes. Councilor Whipple,
Yes.
Councilor Bogdan,
Yes.
and Councilor Christensen.
Yes.
And that passes 7-0. Next, an implied motion on a resolution adopting the 2025 council regular meeting schedule presented by Justin Harrison.
Good evening, council. Hopefully this will be fairly quick and painless. Each year is required by state code. The council must adopt a regular meeting schedule for the upcoming year. So before you is a resolution with proposed dates for the 2025 regular meeting schedule of the Provo City Council. Just quickly, the proposed schedule includes 23 regular meetings, one more than this year, because we know how much everyone loves to be here. In addition, we have dates scheduled for budget priorities meetings in January and February, and a number of noted possible special meetings as needed during budget season. What we've done, and thankfully the calendar was a little better this year. Most holidays fall on either a Monday, Thursday, or Friday as opposed to midweek. So hopefully we won't run into any conflicts. But with that, are there any questions?
Any questions for Justin? Councilor Christensen?
No,
No?
just more meetings, please.
We can add more. We can do that.
All right, thanks, Justin. Any discussion of this item? Councilor Bogdan?
Okay, so not to add more meetings. I actually liked having one meeting in May after having all of those budget things and then everything just kind of, hit you. And even though we do have budget coming in June, that last May meeting was just kind of great because you have everything going on with the end of the school year, and not having that meeting in May was amazing. And then in July, only having one meeting in July was really amazing because it is summer and everybody is going in different directions. And so I would like to actually kill the May 20th meeting and kill the July 22nd meeting.
Can you move it up a little bit, please? What were you going to say, Malia? No, move it so we can see July and May. Thank you. Oh, duh. I just realized they're on the other side. Oh, boy.
Hello. I was just gonna say, finance for the budget actually hated that we only had one May work meeting and liked having two, just because they have state deadlines on when they have to present the budget and present certain things to the council in a public meeting. So having one meeting really messed up their entire budget flow and schedule. So I would suggest not cutting a meeting in May if we are gonna cut one for the sake of finance.
Okay, thanks,
They're
Malia.
not here to speak to that, so I will.
Thank you. They're clapping somewhere. Councilor Garrett had a question.
A question, Justin. Does this simply preserve the dates for council meetings?
No.
Or does this indicate we will meet on these dates?
So you can always cancel a meeting, but you must adopt a future schedule.
Yeah.
So This just locks in your
So
future
that'd be
dates
my
for
only
everything else.
comment, I think, that at least this puts in place a structure for our meeting schedule. And I know it's rare to cancel a meeting, but if we felt the need at mid-year for whatever reason to cancel, we probably could do that.
I just wanted to add my input for the Board of Canvassers meeting. It does say / special meeting as needed, but those Board of Canvassers meetings would be required. That's when we obviously certify the results of the elections, both the primary and the general. So there could be more added to those meetings if needed for, special meetings, but those dates you should definitely plan on a short meeting if it's just the Board of Canvassers, if nothing else is added.
Thank you. Counselor Whipple.
I really enjoyed it when we had like the 2 weeks in a row with no council meetings. Those were really helpful and restorative periods. And I'm happy to see that on this calendar, we have that kind of break from the end of June, beginning of July. We've got it the end of August, beginning of September, well, except for the Board of Canvassers, but that's super short. And then the break at the end of November and a huge one at the end of December. So, well, and yeah, so with those breaks, that gives us good time to catch our breath and everything. And I think it's really useful that those are all in the last half of the year after we've gotten through the craziness of budget. So this seems to put the meetings more frequently where we really need them and then give us breathing room where it's not quite so stressful and we don't have as full of an agenda.
Any more comments? Do we want to look at getting rid of just one of the July ones, like July 8th?
I like the July 22nd one, because that's closer to the 24th of July.
Oh, okay.
If you move the July 22nd to the 15th and then cancel the one on the 8th.
I'm kind of with Gary on this. I think I'd much rather feel secure knowing that we've got the schedule and then decide to cancel a meeting if we wanted to, but we may be in a real pinch and need that meeting and we don't know it. I mean, the 6 years that I've been on the council, that was the longest break I've ever had. Actually, this July was unprecedented, which is why I went away for 2.5 weeks. But that's not normal. And I don't ever remember a break in May. So I don't know what happened this year that accounted for that. But
We had a lot of conflicts this year and weird
yeah,
voting things and there's a bunch of problems.
I think we always have the option of canceling. And while we're on the subject, I know it's a constant battle of scheduling, but like today we started at 2:30, so it hasn't been so bad starting at 10:30 in the morning. I would really like to avoid those if possible, but no one likes to be here past 9 p.m. either. Those are issues that we can think about, but we don't know what would be happening next July. It's way too early. And I think if we don't have a really compelling reason to cancel it now, I wouldn't do it until we know if we could afford to. But there may be occasions where we can. Those are my 2 cents. That was not a vote.
Counselor Bogdan.
So I make a motion that we cancel the July 22nd working council meeting.
But you would adopt the rest of the schedule as it's written.
Yes.
I would second that.
All right. Any discussion on the motion?
Well, I just know due to a family reunion, I'm almost certainly missing the July 8th meeting. So I guess I'm partial to keeping it. I mean, I think it's understood sometimes people miss a meeting, because of Becky, I guess I would say if you had to miss the July 22nd, I don't think anybody would hold that against you, if you had something going on, but so I guess I'd say partial to keeping it.
Counselor Whipple.
Well, I like it when we've got 2 weeks in a row with a meeting. I really don't like it when there are 3 weeks in a row with no meeting. So I wouldn't be supportive of that. The only exception that I see for that is, that end of December, beginning of January period where nobody's really getting anything done anyway.
All right, any more comments or discussion? All right, we'll take a vote on the motion. What seconded? We'll do a vote on the substitute motion. Counselor Handley,
No.
Counselor Hopen,
No.
Counselor McKay, no. Counselor Whipple,
No.
Counselor Bogdan.
What's the substitute motion? Is that the one that I
It's
did?
yours. Mhm.
Yes.
Counselor Christensen
Yes.
and Counselor Garrett.
No.
So that does not pass 5-2. So we'll now do a vote on the implied motion. The original, yeah, the one in front of us. So Counselor Hoban,
Yes.
Counselor McKay, yes. Counselor Whipple,
Yes.
Counselor Bogdan,
No.
Counselor Christensen.
Yes.
Counselor Garrett,
Yes.
Counselor Handley.
Yes.
So that passes 6-1. Now, if there's no objection, we will now adjourn the Provo Municipal Council meeting and convene as the governing board of the Redevelopment Agency of Provo by unanimous consent.
Welcome to the Redevelopment Agency. We will have an implied motion on a resolution approving a real estate purchase contract regarding property at 77 North, 100 West, and a parking structure, use, maintenance, and operation agreement. This will be presented by Keith Morey, our Development Services Assistant Director.
I'm still using this, is that right? Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. We've talked about this a little bit in the past, but just for the public's perspective, one of the purposes of the Redevelopment Association is to try to help facilitate development that might not occur on its own. And many, many years ago, Provo City entered into an agreement with a potential hotel to utilize property that we owned on Center Street and funds that we could generate to help build a parking structure to support that hotel, to bridge a gap, to help us get a hotel in the downtown environment. So that was wildly successful. And a lot of times in these redevelopment project areas, we solve for a gap and never really expect to get a return on that investment because the investment is the commercial development that we're solving for, right? And so if you were to look at success from an economic development perspective, I would say for decades, we've had a wildly successful hotel, a hotel that was able to expand, a hotel that added a convention center to it and expanded even further, all because we participated in the construction of a parking structure with them. Now that's reached a point where that structure needs some significant maintenance and probably some upgrades to allow the hotel to continue to operate. The hotel would like to be able to use that as an asset to finance against it, but that's difficult for us to do. And we as a city and as a redevelopment association aren't really good maintenance and operation people of parking structures. And so it seems appropriate that we would enter into an agreement to sell that back to them and allow them to use that as an asset. It's one of those scenarios where I think we've been able to receive the benefit of the partnership for decades with the hotel there and people coming to the hotel and stabilizing our downtown. And now we have the opportunity to get a return on that investment, which we never anticipated, which we can potentially use to solve maybe other parking needs that we have in the downtown area or something else that we feel like is a priority for us. So with that in mind, I think what this does is this effectively allows the Marriott Group to move forward with their plans to continue to operate that facility, potentially expand the parking structure if they need to, and to operate the hotel the way they need to, and allows us to divest ourselves of that accountability. And it's kind of a win-win from both sides. So I would encourage you to approve the resolution and the operation and maintenance agreement, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Morey? All right, Counselor Chris, or Board Member Christensen, you're not a
Just-
counselor
just
right
a-
now.
Just a quick question. We see it as a great success. Does the hotel see it the same?
Yeah, they do. I'm trying to be delicate. I think in the past, there were conversations that they had with the city that maybe the environment was different when there had been suggestions that the city might be willing to let that asset go on different terms, maybe where we didn't receive some kind of payment back to them. And so it took a lot of negotiations with them to help them understand that we consider this to be an asset that we have a fiduciary responsibility to the public to make sure that we get reimbursement for. And I think after a long time of discussing that back and forth, we were able to reach a price that reflected the significant improvements that they're going to have to make on the structure, and allowed us to get some revenue back to show that we did our fiduciary responsibility. But it is a compromise on both of our ends, and I think it's a win-win, and I think they are happy and satisfied, and I think this allows them to move forward with operations and maintenance of that facility without us as a burden to them. Telling them how to operate a business. I mean, it's just, it kind of separates those accountabilities and let them do what they're good at, the best at, and us too. So.
It's good to hear. They've been a good partner.
They have been. And I can't say enough, the value that the Marriott has been in downtown Provo. I mean, for decades, I don't know if it would be very, very difficult to monetize what their impact has been on stabilizing the downtown for many, many years. And so we're thrilled that they've been successful. I've told them over and over again, we want nothing more for them to be even more successful. We're hoping that anchoring downtown Provo with the city hall the way we have here, and the vision and the courage that took, shows our commitment to stabilizing and helping them support downtown Provo. And it's a great partnership, and they're an incredible member of our community.
I have a quick question about
Please.
the 60 parking passes
Huh?
that we're getting from that. Is there any expiration on those?
20 years.
20 years.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you bet.
Other
Yeah.
questions? All right, then. Thank you.
You bet.
All right, we will now open this item for public comment. Okay, seeing no public comment, we'll open this up for council discussion. No questions, no discussion? Yeah, yes.
No question. Just grateful for the tremendous work that's gone into this. I mean, our downtown is just so vitally important, and part of what the public doesn't hear is all the discussion behind the scene that goes into making this work. This is not an easy task, and I think the Development Services team and under Keith's leadership has done a tremendous job.
Thank you. All right, seeing no further discussion, we will call for a vote on the implied motion. Board Member Bogdan,
Yes.
Board Member Christensen,
Yes.
Board Member Garrett,
Yes.
Board Member Handley,
Yes.
Board Member Hoban,
Yes.
Board Member McKay,
Yes.
and Board Member Whipple is yes. That vote is 7-0 in favor. If there's no objection, we will now adjourn the Governing Board of the Redevelopment Agency of Provo meeting by unanimous consent.
Thank you very much.
I'm glad that wasn't an objection.